cases. So.
Great. Thank you. Mark?
Referred to 9/11 and the war on terror, and Jack Goldsmith in his book said that at least an ostensibly responsible high government official told him that if you say no to the president, the blood of thousands of Americans will be on your hands. The question I have is how, if it does this affect the traditional role and responsibilities of the Justice Department when the president is engaged in a war on terror?
I think it was Jim Comey that said that an argument like that was made in response to his saying no, and I'm proud to say that he still said no. And as a result was quite happily by this administration shuttled out the door, you know, so...
That's what I was going to add, right? Jim Comey and Jack Goldsmith, you know, both report and we know have said no, and they're, I think, reason for hope that people in this administration did stand up for the right thing, but they weren't there very long. And I think the last week's New York Times report about the fact that soon after they left, OLC issued these 2 additional secret opinions saying any form of interrogation is lawful, despite Congress's clear ban, demonstrates that you really, as I said, need a change in tone from the top. And you need the Attorney General, you know, to stand firm, and the Senate to make sure we have an Attorney General who will do that.
I think, as a general proposition, for those of us who've been inside, we all know it. I mean, there are tremendous pressures whenever you're trying to accomplish a law enforcement objective. I mean, to try to say yes. To prosecutions, to investigations. I mean, the first thing assistant U.S. attorneys need to understand and learn is that just because some FBI agent wants you to indict the case doesn't necessarily mean you should indict the case. That prosecutors in our system, because federal criminal law is very expansive and in terms of your ability to interpret the mail fraud statute and some of these other statutes, it requires sensitive, quasi-judicial exercise of discretion in making these determinations. And so you have to have people who understand. Other parts of the world, I taught for a semester in Europe in a law school, and there when the prosecutor brings a case to the police bring a case to the prosecutor, they don't have discretion to say no, they have to prosecute it. One of the great things about our system is that we have people whose responsibility it is to say no. And therefore, we need to have people who are willing to stand up to the normal pressures, because the job of these agents and all the law enforcement agents, and I don't criticize them, is to push, you know. And the job of the people who believe in the rule of law and had charged with the responsibility for applying it is to say no when you appropriately say no. That doesn't mean you don't try to do what's within the rule of law, and there are going to be differences of opinion where that line is. But if somebody gives up the responsibility of saying, I'm going to examine this carefully, I'm going to determine where the line is, and when the line comes, I'm going to say no, and be prepared to say, you know what, I'm going to resign, rather than let somebody else be a yes person. You don't, frankly, over the course of my career as a prosecutor, some of my proudest moments in terms of my own exercise of discretion were cases where I did say no, where I, notwithstanding a lot of pressure, said this isn't an appropriate case. And that's what people, that notion needs to be reinvigorated throughout the Justice Department in my view.
Yeah, I want to add just one quick thing I think is important. When we say you have to tell the president no, it doesn't mean and therefore allow the next terrorist attack and, you know, a million people die, as that White House official claimed would happen. I think Jack Goldsmith's book is great at this. When he and Jim Comey said no, what they said was, Congress has said you do not have the power to do this. What you must do is go to Congress. If you think you can make the case, you need the power, get them to change that restriction. Also important in Charlie Savage's book makes clear that this administration came into office hostile to that idea of ever going to Congress, wanting to expand unilateral executive authority and leave the presidency stronger than when they arrived. You know, so it was an agenda to not comply with statutes or have them fixed when they thought the president needed greater authority, but simply to assert commander-in-chief authority to ignore federal statutory restrictions and not go to Congress. So nobody's saying, just say no in situations where the president really has the need for expanded powers. If that's true, go to Congress. And Congress has certainly proven very willing to expand presidential power when the president says he really needs it.